All right, we're live. G'day, guys. Welcome once again to the Tripod, where we usually break down every NRL game from a punting perspective, but it's a special little mini pod today. We have with us Daniel Edwards, better known as Neddy. He is an absolute NFL genius, not in the betting sense. He's only been betting for what, do you reckon, 3 or 4 years, Neddy, you've been betting on NFL for?
Yeah, I think it's about third or fourth year, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, but he is an absolute genius when it comes to personnel. He watches game film for hours during the season, and so he knows a lot about other parts of NFL, not necessarily betting related, that we aren't as good at. Neddy, are you absolutely stoked for the season to begin, mate?
Oh, mate, I'm fucking over the moon. It feels like this off-season's gone forever, but at least we've got all the Antonio Brown shit going on to keep us sort of busy. But other than that, I'm ready to roll, man.
Very true. It has been a pretty entertaining off-season, hasn't it? Antonio Brown and then obviously Andrew Luck retiring before the season even started. Was that a shock to you, mate, or...?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, that was probably the most hectic thing that happened during our NFL draft that we were doing, wasn't it? So that sort of derailed that for a fair while, the fantasy football. But, yeah, I did not see that coming at all, obviously. But
yeah, fucking oath. And me and Ned are in a fantasy league, which I happened to win last year. So I'm going for back-to-back, but I had to auto-draft this year. So my team is not looking good, and I already hate my team. All right, mate, anything you wanted to add about the season, about anything before we get stuck into these prop bets?
I'm ready to roll, brother.
Let's roll, mate. So the first one I wanted to go through, and people, please let me know if you can't see, I guess, the text on there. I'm putting up, obviously the odds there. Ned can't see them, but hopefully you guys at home can see them. But the first one up there is the most passing TDs in the season. I have my own opinion on this and a little bit of a flyer, but why don't you get us kick-started, Neddy? Who's someone on that list that you see as value there?
Mate, there's probably only two blokes that really jump out to me. One is, of course, Matt Ryan. I think he's going to be pretty busy this year.
Fair.
And you sort of look at the schedule they have, like they could tear apart the Panthers as one. They got them twice. They got the Bucks twice. They got the Saints. They can easily be past them. And of course, you've got the 49ers as well. But another one that I've sort of looking at that's good value at $15 is Carson Wentz. They're completely stacked throughout that whole thing. I think he's going to have a monster year, so I'm leaning more towards him. They like to play aggressive, but I'd say him at $15 is pretty solid.
Yeah, aren't they absolutely stacked? And I don't know what you've heard coming out of that Philly camp, if they're trying to run the ball more or whatever, but they don't have a standout kind of running back this year, I guess, do they really? And they have so many weapons on the edges. So I do like the pick. I'm going to throw one at you and let me know, what you think. I think that, obviously Mahomes is rightfully favoured at $4, but I think it's way too short for me. He threw 50 TDs last season, but there has to be some regression there. And I get that, they throw the ball a shitload, but you have injury concerns about Tyreek Hill. Obviously you've got Travis Kelce there. He's an absolute monster. But like your second wide receiver, your number 2 receiver is fucking Sammy Watkins. So if anything happens to Tyreek Hill, and he's been pretty injury prone, then they're in trouble there, I think. I'm going to throw this one at you. Deshaun Watson at $31. Obviously, you know better than anyone the moves that they've made. They actually got a little bit weaker on defense, getting rid of Clowney, and got, you could say, a fair bit better on offense, getting in that left tackle and then, acquiring Kenny Stills from the Dolphins. I think they're going to be in a fair few, shootouts, the way their teams can, the way that those trades have gone.
Well, I'm with you 100%, and that it'll tie into another bet that I have later on. But the thing that sort of went under the radar last year about the Texans is that they actually played the easiest schedule in the NFL, and that's why they ended up getting into the playoffs and that good run later on. Whereas this year they're playing a much harder slate in terms of their opponents, and I think the defense is a little bit overrated. I think teams can score on them, and if you're playing on teams that have better offense, they're going to have to pass more. There's going to be more points, so I'm with that 100%, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like the two picks that you did, and we'll sift right over because I'm assuming you might have something that rolls into this one, but it's the most receiving touchdowns, and this is a fairly interesting one. Obviously, Devontae Adams is the favourite there at $7.50 because he's basically the only receiver that Aaron Rodgers has to pass to anymore. But anyone on there stand out for you, Ned?
Exactly that, man. I got Hopkins there with the Texans because the same things we just spoke about there, and I think that he's Watson's blankie. Like, that's what he likes to hold at night. That's what makes him comfortable. I think that's what he's going to be firing to, and I think the other teams are going to score on the Texans a bit. So I just think that direction probably more than anything. And Hopkins catch anything. Doesn't matter whether you double, triple cover him. He's catching it.
I think there was something ridiculous like last year he caught his first like 30-something passes, or maybe it was even more than that. I don't know if you can remember back, but like without dropping one.
Oh, man, he's insane. He's getting better every year. Like, I used to have arguments with the boys all the time about it. Like, I think he's good, but just his catch radius of late and everything, he just drops nothing anymore, eh?
Oh, it's unreal. And I am completely with you. I have, we didn't talk about these before we came on air. I wrote down what I liked, and I said to Neddy, write down what you like. And I had Hopkins here as well. I think it's a steal at $12. And that's on Sportsbet. I actually think that might be the best price in the market. I've seen that as low as $9 or $10. Completely agree with you. Like I said, with the roster changes that they've made, getting a little bit weaker on D, getting a little bit stronger on that O-line. And look, I guess you can say, there's a few mouths to feed now there with Kenny Stills coming in. But really, you look at that team and it's like, you've got a couple of dudes like Will Fuller and who am I thinking of? Kiki QT.
He's not staying healthy.
Yeah, and they're like struggling to stay healthy. And even so, like DeAndre Hopkins is the red zone target. Like, you're not going to Kenny Stills. Or he's like, if they get to the red zone, they're going DeAndre Hopkins. And they don't really have, a great run game either now.
They got Duke, and they brought someone else across too recently.
Carlos Hyde. So I mean, they're going to be throwing a lot more than they're going to be passing. Next up, most regular season rushing touchdowns. This was an interesting one with the Zeke Elliott holdout, but now he's going to be playing. He's getting paid $90 million for 6 years, massive money, and he probably does deserve it. He is, one of the elite. Anyone in here stand out for you as value, Ned?
Yeah, this one was a little bit out there considering how much they spread around their backfield, but Sony Michel. And the Patriots actually play one of the easiest.
Woo!
Yeah, I don't want that because you're a fantasy team, but they actually play one of the easiest slate of run defenses the whole season, which is bullshit because that's how they've sort of progressed their team into. That's how they want to move. Of course, there is that muddled backfield, but how Sony's even looked throughout the preseason. I know it's preseason, but he's looking great. He's looking strong, and they could just use him exactly like they used to with LeGarrette Blount and just fucking smash over the end zone every time they want. So with that, it's between him and I think maybe Connor from Pittsburgh. I think there's a little bit of stuff that could go into that there. Pittsburgh, given the opportunity, if they can shove something in Lev Bell's face, I think they probably will. So both those guys are sitting at $12.
Mate, this is so funny because I had written down one name here and it is Sony Michel, and it is a bet that I've actually made myself. I happened to get him at $21. You can't get that anymore, but I completely agree with you. I think that, through the playoffs, you saw how the Pats want to play. They want to play run heavy. Tom Brady's getting older. They don't want to wear his arm down. And, one of the things that I noticed when you look through this list, especially Alvin Kamara at $9.50 at number one, he is going to get a few, passing touchdowns as well.
Yeah.
Whereas Sony Michel is not. If they're getting the ball within, 5 yards of the goal line, he is getting the touches. I think that's a great play. And like you said, easy schedule. Because, even with Alvin Kamara, I don't think he should be anywhere near $9.50. I get that the Saints are awesome and they are a run-heavy team, but now you've got Latavius Murray going to be vulturing fucking goal line touchdowns there. And I think that's probably one of the reasons they got him is to take some of those goal line carries.
And Sean Payton also came out in the off-season. They were talking about that, how they had to let Mark Ingram go. And his response was that you cannot use Alvin Kamara throughout the whole game. Like, you need to rest him. You need to use him in situations. So if you got Latavius Murray on fantasy, good job. But I don't think Kamara is not that every down back, every down bell cow that you'd use all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get to a comment, Ned, because this one is pertinent to you. You are a staunch Panthers truther. And someone's asking, what about McCaffrey?
Probably not for rushing TDs. I think he's going to have a monster year. But I think the Panthers are actually going to throw a hell of a lot more this year. I think, this will lead into the next couple of questions. But as good as what a runner he is, I'm not too sure. I think they're going to throw a bit. They're going to spread things out. And it actually alleviates pressure on quarterbacks if you're actually throwing it a little bit more. I know it sounds weird because there's the pass rush. But if you're running more, then you leave yourself in third and longs. That's when the quarterbacks get hurt. So the best way to protect is to actually pass early. And I think they'll sort of lean away from the run a little bit more, I think.
Should make for a fun season, absolutely. And then I have just clicked, I think, no, I haven't. We're on to MVP, Ned. A lot of names in there. It's a long list of names that I shot through to you. But I'll let you say more than one name because obviously there is a lot to get through here. And there is one overwhelming favourite in Pat Mahomes at $6.50. But are you leaning that way, mate, or is that too low for value?
It's too low for value for me. I mean, if I mean, he's going to be odds on, and he probably should be. And even if he does regress a little bit, he's probably still throwing 35 plus touchdowns. But
Right.
for me, I'm going to be a fucking homer here. I don't care. Cam Newton's sitting at $41. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Woo!
I think he's going to have a much better year. No one's sort of backing him because of the shoulder thing. Couple of running, all that sort of. And even last year, like you got to remember, he was playing better last year than his Super Bowl year. So I got him at $41. That's me, baby.
Did you bet it yourself?
I did indeed.
Nice,
I always
do. And that is just like the one issue, because when he plays well, he is one of the best in the game, and it's just a matter of him staying healthy. Because I mean, he's had the shoulder obviously, and then what did he have, like an ankle or something in preseason?
Just a sprained ankle sort of thing. Like they made it out bad and put him in the walk-in boot, but the coaches and that said, like if it wasn't a preseason, he would have stayed in, and he was back at training 2 days later anyway. So
yeah, fair enough. No, I love the play at $41. Look. You know, I've said before that I really think that Watson's going to have a good season if he can stay healthy. A lot of weapons there, and they're going to need to pass a little bit more with no run game there. So, Deshaun Watson at $26 jumps out at me. And as well, like, are we really forgetting about Jared Goff here? I mean, the Rams made the Super Bowl last year. They are a stacked team, and Gurley's not going to get as much workload this year as last year. I think they're going to, probably have to pass a little bit more. And certainly if Gurley gets injured, Jared Goff is going to have to fling it all over the place, and he's got 3 gun receivers there. So, I see no reason why the Rams can't be, just as good as they were last year. And if they are, it'll have to be on the back of Goff. So I think that's decent at $31. Plus, you get a healthy Cooper Kupp back as well.
Well, that's his sort of wet blanket as well. Like, that's what he loves going to, Cooper Kupp. We saw as soon as he dropped out last year, Goff's numbers just dramatically just went straight down.
Yeah.
So if Kupp can come back and he can be healthy out of the gate, definitely with a shot. Except they're going to fucking lose week 1, I can promise you that.
You heard it here first. You can't see the comments. You can't see the comments flowing through, Ned, but someone said Cam spent all off-season in women's clothing. It's probably not the most untrue statement.
Dress like a shield, play like a man.
Yeah, that's it. All right, let's get on to our offensive rookie of the year. Obviously, Kyler Murray is the breakaway favorite here, under $3, which actually seems pretty ridiculous to me. I mean, I'll start. I think that is way too low. I mean, he is on a Cards team that has pretty shitty O-line. He's going to be running for his life constantly. You saw this happen in preseason, and I just really think that he is going to really struggle, and that team is just going to struggle. I get that they're going to be down a lot. He's probably going to put up decent stats because they're going to try and play a little bit faster this year. But I just think that under $3 is ridiculous for that. You know what I like? I think that I'm not sure if these odds, have updated. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I mean, I wasn't looking at Offensive Rookie of the Year as a bet that I was going to make. But is Devin Singletary at $18? That seems decent. He's going to be the lead back there now with no LaShawn McCoy. So he's going to get the touches. And you look at some of these other guys, like Dwayne Haskins at $11.50. He's not even starting the season, He might only play 10 games. If that, I think, to win this one, you're probably going to need someone to play the full 16 games. And Singletary's walked into a lead back role, albeit on a shitty Bills team, but he's going to get the workload. And by all accounts, he is a talented little back.
Yeah. I sort of like, personally, I like the Montgomery from the Bears. I think he is an absolute, freak in the way that he plays. I think
people reckon he's awesome. Have you watched him before?
Oh yeah, he played the first game against the Panthers, and apparently in college there's only 2 times that a player has broken 100 tackles in a season or evaded 100 tackles, and it was him twice.
Yeah, right.
So he's just an absolute animal. I think he's going to get the carries. He's on a good team. And the other one for me is Josh Jacobs. He's flown under the radar. Barely even saw him on Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
But the way that John Gruden likes to do, he loves to just run his running backs into the ground and throw him plenty of ball. And Josh Jacobs is a fucking good footballer as well. I think he'll be using that Kamara-type role.
Yep.
It's just whether or not they sort of have that success that he can sort of build up the numbers for it. But those are the 2 guys I like. I'm with you, the Kyler Murray stuff. Even if he has a good season, I can't remember what the run home is, but the last 5 or 6 games after the bye it's just a murderous row of teams. And if you're heading into the end of the season, you get your ass kicked, you're not winning that.
And it's he can throw for, 400 yards in a game, but they lose, 31-14, and it's not going to amount to that much. I agree with you, those couple. And I guess if you're saying Montgomery and Jacobs, I guess, would you lean towards Montgomery just because the Bears are probably going to have a bit more positive game script that, for him rather than the Raiders that might be thrown from behind?
Yeah, that, and they got a better
Yes.
offensive line coach as well. Like the guy at the Raiders, Cable,
Yep.
he's awful. Like I think over the last couple of years, I think I think over the last 10 years, he's averaged like the 26th, 27th best offensive lines in terms of passing and rushing. I think it's just as shit. So he's a mess. But I'd lean more towards Monty, but just Jacobs as well, possibly just because I think they'll overfeed him probably.
Yeah, fair call. And that's why we love Ned, and that's why we need him, because he knows about coaches, he knows about scheming, and he knows fucking offensive and defensive coaches like no other. And most of the time,
Thanks, mate.
we don't have any idea about that. And this is one that I'm going to probably defer to you because, obviously I've seen a few of these guys play. Nick Bosa, I know that Devin Bush is an absolute animal. But
Yeah.
defensive rookie of the year, you're going to know more than anything about this one than me, so I'm going to defer to you. Anyone out here that sort of
Um,
stands out?
I think the two Devons, the Bush from Steelers, and I think Devin White from the Buccaneers. I think Bush because similar thing to Montgomery, he's on a very good team, and I think it's going to be highly publicized because he's sort of taking Shazier's spot.
Yep.
So all it would take in a couple of primetime games, he's sort of going to leapfrog there a little bit. Another homer sort of pick is Brian Burns from the Panthers. He's sitting at $14. I think he racked up 5 sacks over the course of the preseason, and that was actually against the starters in most of those games. So
Yep.
I think with the rotation, Carolina can get some numbers, but again, because there's a rotation, might go down. So I'd lean more towards Devin Bush, if anything.
You mentioned Devin White on the Bucks. What position does he play, and is he going to help this Bucks defense at all? Because is that the worst defense in the NFL?
Yeah, well, probably that on my. Oh no, Miami's defense isn't too bad. He plays middle linebacker, so they were the two first middle linebackers that come off the board in the draft. He's probably that hair bit more athletic than what Bush is, but
Yep.
Bush is just going to fuck plays up. Like he just runs in like a missile and just.
He is a fucking monster. Like, you look at him and he looks like he's straight out of fucking action figure box. Let's get to this one, and you're going to know more than me about this one as well. But I'm going to have my first crack here. The team to record the most sacks in the regular season, and it's no surprise that you have, the Chicago Bears up there tied with the Chargers and the Rams and the Eagles and the Steelers as the top five there, all at $11. And I'm not sure if you like one of those top five, Ned, but I was going to say, in regards to sacks, I was going to throw this one over to you. Would you be more inclined to take a team for the most sacks if they're going to be up a lot of the time during the season? Because I just feel like if the defense knows that the QB is going to throw, like if you're constantly up in games like the Pats and the defense knows that it's going to be a passing down, is it easier to just rush the QB and get a sack in that situation? Because if that is the case, then you kind of want to take a good team that's going to be in positive game scripts more often than not.
Yeah, no, 100%, and that's why. I mean, it was well publicized how shit the Chiefs' defense was last year, and everyone knew that even going up into the season. And I think they led the league in sacks or whatever. There was over 50 something sacks I think that they had. You'd never
Just
bet that
because
in
they're
a
up
million
all
years
the time, yeah.
because they're up all the time, and that's the reason why I picked the team that I did.
Yep.
I actually went after the Jacksonville Jaguars because they have a very
Interesting.
deep rotation in there, and their schedule of games this year is much harder than last year. I think it's a top 10 schedule in terms of opposing offenses, but at the same time, they're playing. Obviously, the AFC South, Titans have got a shitty O-line now.
Yes.
The Texans, obviously got a little bit better. AFC West, Chargers O-line, shit. The Broncos, and they also have the Bengals, Raiders in there.
Yeah.
And, they can just feast on those sort of teams. And the NFC South, so Atlanta's offense looks shit. Ours is questionable. And, again, the Bucs are in there as well. So,
Yeah, true.
with that sort of rotation they have, they could just feast. And with their offense supposedly better, I think they could be out in front a lot of times, and then that defense, which we know is one of the best in the league, they just played like fucking shit last year. I think they'll have a chance to pin their ears back and really go after it.
I like it. What do you think about the Rams? They're obviously in, not the worst division, but like you said, you've got the Cardinals in there whose offensive line is terrible. You've got the 49ers who historically, haven't had the best O-line, and you've got the Seahawks who really struggled with their O-line last year. I mean, if any of those, especially the 49ers and Seahawks, have they upgraded significantly enough to where you'd say that the Rams is probably not a good bet in this case?
I think it's up there just because of the quality of the players they have, but at the same time, losing Sue, even though he sort of mailed it in for most part of the season, I think that's actually a pretty decent loss because now teams can go back to doubling Aaron Donald and all that sort of stuff. I'm pretty sure they've lost one of their edge rushers on the outside. They've sort of moved so much towards an offensive team.
Yep.
Of course, they'll have the opportunities there if they lay on as much points as what they did last year, but I mean, anything's a possibility. It's worth a crack if you really want to have a go at it. But
I don't really want to have a go at that market, to
Don't
be
have a go
perfectly
at
honest. And we'll finish up. Won't spend too much time on this one, but the person that you think is going to have the most sacks, or the player, Aaron Donald, you see there is the prohibitive favourite at $4.50. But is that the one that you would go for, mate? Or
no, I'm looking at Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's sitting at 15. I think they're going to have some of that positive game script as well. And I think he is one of those elite pass rushers, like you have your Von Millers, your Khalil Max, all those sort of guys. I think he is in that tier. He just hasn't had that opportunity yet. And they've stacked up their defensive line this year. They've got Olivier Vernon in there. So I think they're going to be in that sort of good game script. And if you really wanted to piggyback on top of the Jaguars one, there's Unique Ngakoue, who I think is unreal as well. He's paying $26, and I think he's an under-the-radar talent. I think he's going to have opportunities with people going at Calais Campbell. So you want to roll the dice? There's two blokes.
I like it. And before we get out of here, Ned, I'll get to one question. Matt says Leonard for most tackles and assists. Now, I have no idea about that market, but would you say that that's going to be close up there, has a chance, is a decent bet? I guess you need to know odds, but would you say that that's half a chance?
Well, it's probably only going to be between him, Kuechly, and Wagner in terms of like amount of tackles. So, I mean, it's between those three as long as they all stay healthy. But on the other side of that, like obviously Leonard was a bit of a rookie last year, so teams are only still getting used to that. And from being a Panthers fan and watching our team's game plan against Kuechly, they're going to be doing that against Leonard this year. You can be sure of that. So he's going to have a tougher time.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Well, look, Ned, thank you so much for joining
Pleasure,
us.
bro.
It wasn't that long. It's only, what do we go? We still went over a little over 20 minutes. So, but yeah, you'll be in the group. Are you going to be posting up tips this year again?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I'll probably get the first article
chance,
right up this weekend, I think, brother.
Nice, mate. Sounds good. Well, thanks for joining us, mate. And we'll see you for a few more pods this season. Before we get out of here, you got a tip on the Packers-Bears game. The line's about 3.5.
If it's 3.5, maybe the Packers, but I'm probably going to stay the fuck away from that game, to be perfectly honest with you.
Absolutely. It'll probably be a repeat of last year, which was a fucking ridiculous game.
I think so.
Mate, thanks again for coming on, and we'll catch you during the season.
All right, see you, brother.
See you, mate.